The morning was still shrouded in a dense fog when Ibrahim Traoré stepped out of the official car in front of the glass-fronted building where the international summit would take place. Aligned soldiers saluted, but he barely noticed them. Traoré's gaze was steady, profound, like that of someone carrying on their shoulders not just the fate of a nation, but the weight of an entire generation that never surrendered. His impeccable uniform contrasted with the simplicity of his gestures. A man of power who never forgot the humble roots of the people he served. That day, he knew he would face more than diplomatic debates. There was a rumor, almost tangible, of confrontation. News had spread through the palace corridors and across the city. An influential foreign politician, notorious for his air of superiority and veiled contempt for African nations, was coming prepared to humiliate Traoré in front of the world's cameras. Upon entering the Golden Hall, the atmosphere was charged. The colors of flags mingled with the flashes of photographers, and languages spoke in different tones, but all whispered the same thing. Will Traoré bow? He walked slowly, as if treading on sacred ground, greeting dignitaries with a slight nod of the head. Each step echoed among marble columns and watchful eyes. The foreign politician, in an expensive suit, with cold eyes and a calculated smile, was already waiting for him. His rigid posture and faintly condescending tone made it clear he intended to mark the distance, as if Africa still needed to learn what power is. But Traoré merely smiled. Not an easy smile, but the smile of someone who has seen pain, faced betrayal, known hunger and humiliation, and chose not to return to the world what he had received. He greeted his adversary with a firm handshake, showing no tension, and together they walked to the long negotiation table, where reporters waited eagerly. The minutes that followed felt like a silent dance of glances, gestures, and subtle provocations. The foreign politician began his speech, using beautiful words to conceal venom. He spoke of international aid, civilizational standards, and insinuated that African leadership needed to learn to listen, to submit, to be more humble. The hall, filled with representatives from various nations, wavered between embarrassed glances and expressions of anticipation. Many had seen this script before. An African ridiculed, a foreigner boasting of their position. But at that moment, something was different. Traoré's face remained serene, his eyes attentive, as if he were listening not only to the words, but to the ancestral pain behind them. He took a deep breath, and for a moment, time seemed suspended. Journalists leaned forward, cameras focused on his face. In a low, firm voice, Traoré began, "I come from a people who know the value of the land because they plant it with their own hands. I grew up watching my mother divide a single loaf of bread among many children, and we never left anyone behind. I know what it's like to wait for justice that never arrives, to hear that we must accept little because we weren't born in the right place. But I also learned that humility is not submission. Humility is recognizing that everyone, without exception, has something to teach the world. And it was this humility that made my people survive the impossible, rise after every fall, find dignity, even in the mud." A silence settled over the hall, heavy, almost sacred. The foreign politician gave a scornful smile but did not interrupt. Traoré continued, now looking directly into his adversary's eyes. "You speak of progress, as if it were a prize awarded by those who think they own the world. But true progress is when the farmer's child can dream of something greater without fear of being crushed. It's when no one needs to bow before another, because of where they were born. I came here to dialogue, not to receive orders. I came to show that a people's dignity is non-negotiable, that there is no true greatness without respect and solidarity. And if my voice ever trembles, let it be only from the emotion of seeing my people recognized as equals among the peoples of the earth." The words echoed, gaining strength among those present. An elderly diplomat discreetly wiped away a tear, while others exchanged disconcerted glances. The foreign politician, feeling the pressure, stood up theatrically and fired back. "With all due respect, Mr. Traoré, the modern world demands results, not emotional speeches. Leading means accepting sacrifices, making unpopular decisions, not getting lost in sentimentalism. You Africans need to learn to act according to the rules. That's why countries like mine prosper, while yours remain developing. The tension rose. Some members of the press waited for an explosion, a clash of voices, the spectacle that would boost ratings. But Traoré closed his eyes for a brief second, remembering his father, a simple man who always said, "Son, never return arrogance with arrogance, because arrogance is the poison of those who are afraid." When he opened his eyes, they were more alive than ever. He responded with disarming calm, "You're right. Leading is accepting sacrifices. I accepted sacrificing the comfort of an easy life to serve my people. I accepted losing nights of sleep to ensure no child went to bed hungry. I accepted criticism and threats because I believe justice is worth more than applause. You call this sentimentalism. I call it humanity. And if the price for being respected is renouncing our essence, then I'd rather we be called developing than developed without a soul." A murmur ran through the room. The once icy atmosphere began to shift. Someone clapped discreetly, followed by others. The foreign politician, embarrassed, tried to regain control. "That's nice to hear, Mr. Traoré, but the world doesn't change with words. The world changes with strength, with strong leadership. Are you prepared to do whatever it takes?" Traoré stood slowly, with the same tranquility of someone facing a storm without fear. "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes, as long as I never have to trample those who are down. Because for me, leadership isn't measured by the power to humiliate, but by the courage to lift up the fallen. It may seem like little, but that's what builds a nation. That's what builds a fairer world." At that moment, Traoré's image stood out on the auditorium's screen. A camera captured a close-up of his face, showing the marks of someone who had faced battles, but also the light of someone who believed in hope. The audience remained silent, absorbing every word, every gesture, every glance. It wasn't just a speech, it was a lesson. It was a response to the arrogance that had spanned centuries. It was the humility of one man transforming the stage of power before the world's eyes. The collective breath of the auditorium seemed to hang in the air, as if time hesitated between a past of humiliations and a present of courage. For a moment, the foreign politician stood motionless, staring at Traoré, searching in his own arguments for the superiority that history's privileges had always guaranteed him. But under the African's gaze, all arrogance dissolved into something deeper: doubt. Traoré didn't back down, didn't raise his voice, didn't seek retaliation. He was a human shield made of serenity, capable of disarming fury with a single simple gesture. And that gesture came when he turned to the audience, addressing not just the powerful seated there, but everyone who, on the other side of the cameras, carried scars of injustice. "I learned that humility isn't staying silent in the face of injustice. Humility is having the courage to speak, even when your voice trembles, even when the entire system expects you to bow. I grew up hearing stories from my grandfather, who survived wars and crossed deserts. He used to say, 'The humble man is like a strong tree. It doesn't bend with just any wind, but it also doesn't seek to destroy those who blow against it.' That's why, today, I don't respond with hatred. I don't insult. I don't shy away from dialogue. I prefer to believe that even in the hardest heart, there's room for truth. And the truth is that no people is inferior, no culture is dispensable, no life is irrelevant." At the back of the room, a young African journalist clutched her hands nervously, discreet tears streaming down as she broadcast the scene live to millions. In poor neighborhoods, distant villages, and cities marked by inequality, Traoré's words broke through barriers. Social media erupted with messages of support. Hashtags emerged: Respect Africa and Voice of Hope. But there, in front of everyone, Traoré remained simple. When offered the microphone to respond to his adversary's final provocation, he declined. Instead, he walked slowly to the edge of the stage, pulled a small, colorful African cloth from his pocket, and raised it for all to see. This isn't just a symbol of culture. It's memory. It's resistance. Every color, every thread, was woven by hands that survived the impossible. It's not a flag of submission, but of pride in who we are. Arrogance only exists where memory is lacking. I don't forget where I came from, and no one will make me forget. The foreign politician, clearly rattled, tried to intervene with an ironic tone. A fine speech, but what exactly do you propose for epinephrine the world? Do you intend to change the international order with just good intentions? Traoré didn't hesitate. With a direct gaze, he replied, I propose respect. I propose true listening. I propose that we stop measuring a nation's dignity by its GDP, but by the smiles of its children. I propose that each of us looks at the other without the filters of prejudice, without the lenses of a colonial past. Peace isn't built only with treaties, but with daily gestures of dignity. If that's naivety, then let me be called naive. I prefer hope to the calculated coldness of indifference. The response disarmed the hostile atmosphere. The audience, previously focused only on the clash of egos, was now swept by a new energy. Representatives from smaller nations, diplomats accustomed to silence, began raising their hands, asking to speak, supporting Traoré's words. One of them, from an island nation ignored by most powers, said in an emotional voice, Today, for the first time, I feel we're being heard. Today, we're not invisible. The impact was immediate. Even foreign cameras, usually focused only on the major powers, turned their lenses to Traoré. As he left the auditorium, reporters swarmed him. They asked if he wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, if he didn't fear reprisals, if he truly believed words could change the course of centuries of inequality. Traoré took a deep breath, with that same look of someone who had faced deserts and battles, and said, I believe in the power of example. Arrogance may be loud, may be noisy, but humility is like water. It flows quietly beneath, and one day it moves even the heaviest stones. I didn't come here for applause, but to build bridges. And I know I'm not alone. Where there's humility, there's strength. Where there's wisdom, there's a future. The interview went viral. On the streets, young people wore clothes inspired by the African cloth Traoré had shown. Children imitated his gesture in schools. Teachers used his speech as a lesson in citizenship. The image of Traoré, serene in the face of arrogance, spread as a symbol of silent, powerful resistance. The foreign politician, meanwhile, left hurriedly, avoiding the press, his expression showing more than defeat. It showed transformation. Somewhere, the seed of humility had been planted, even if he wasn't ready to admit it. Days later, during a private meeting, Traoré was discreetly approached by the same foreign politician. The man seemed different, less haughty, with a tired but now sincere gaze. I grew up hearing that you have to crush to win, he confessed, his voice trembling. But it never occurred to me that you can conquer through respect. What you said has been echoing in my mind. Maybe I do need to learn humility. Traoré listened in silence, unhurried, like someone who knows the true impact of words lies in time. It's not about humiliating anyone or reversing the power game, he replied, but about seeing in the other the same humanity we wish for ourselves. When we understand that, the victory belongs to everyone. The conversation stretched on. They spoke of childhood, challenges, lost and rediscovered dreams. Traoré shared stories of Burkina Faso, recalled forgotten names, and spoke of silent struggles waged by ordinary people. The foreign politician listened, for the first time, without interrupting, without arguing. When they left that room, they were no longer adversaries. They weren't friends yet, but they were humans, standing as equals. The impact of that encounter began to spread quietly through other corridors, other offices. And so, without a single imposition, humility began to reshape the diplomatic landscape of that forum. As he walked back to his hotel, Traoré met the gaze of a cleaner, a simple woman, invisible to many, but not to him. He smiled, waved, and exchanged kind words. She, surprised, cried discreetly, "No one has ever looked at me like that in here." Traoré replied, "Everyone deserves respect. There's no such thing as small work. Greatness lies in the heart that serves." In that moment, captured by an anonymous photographer, made the cover of a newspaper. The image went viral, outshining the political debate, becoming a symbol of what true leadership means. Upon returning to his country, Ibrahim Traoré was welcomed not with grandiose celebrations, but with the quiet warmth of a people who felt pride. His words had crossed borders. His actions echoed where traditional diplomacy couldn't reach. In the faces of children, in the spark in the eyes of the elderly, in the simple gesture of a worker greeting him. There was confirmation that humility and wisdom can indeed change destinies. Across the world, thousands began to see Africa not as a continent to be taught, but as a silent teacher of dignity. And Traoré, without ever raising his voice, showed the world that when arrogance seeks to humiliate, the most powerful response is always the greatness of a humble heart.